Hello everybody, welcome to the table. Today we're checking out this new knife I picked up online. This one right here is a Kershaw. This is the model 1415. And before I really get into any controversy about the knife, I kind of just want to show off the knife, and we'll chat about the provenance of this knife in a few minutes. But let's take a look at what we have right here in hand. So you can see this design right here. We have a steel frame lock, and this is a Chinese-made knife. And this is just, again, solid steel frame lock right here. Let's go ahead and check out the weight of the knife, because being a steel frame lock, sometimes they can be a bit heavy. Right here, this one's weighing in at 3.8 ounces, which is really not too bad, to be honest with you. So for a steel frame lock, 3.8 ounces, not too bad, not too shabby. Lengthwise, let's take a look at the blade length right here. So we're looking at a blade length of about a little over 3 inches long. Overall length about 7¼ inches. The blade shape is actually quite attractive. It's kind of just this nice downward edge right here with a swedge on there on the top. Up here on the spine, we can see there is some jimping, and when you hold the knife in hand, you can feel that. It feels pretty good, so no issues there. The blade came razor sharp out of the package. No issues with that. Lockup also, again, rock solid. This is an assisted opening knife, so when you use that flipper tab, the blade just swings right on out quite freely, so no issues with that. And in terms of markings, we have the Kershaw Speed Safe logo here on the show side of the knife, and on the reverse we have some interesting markings here. So we have the 1415 Kai patented, as well as the Made in China mark, but we also have this little insignia on there. And on Kershaw knives, that little marking there indicates that this knife was designed, in-house by Kershaw's own design team. And so I guess we'll get back to that in a minute too as well. But the knife itself, you can check out the centering, which looks quite nice. We do have, of course, the steel frame, but there's also this red backspacer, and this appears to be like a polymer backspacer. So it adds some color, some pop to the design, because everything else is black and steel colored, but we got some nice red color there. And we do have a reversible pocket clip, so it's a nice deep carry design right there, so you can flip that over, right or left hand side carry. Black colored pocket clip, so you can see the Kershaw logo on there, so knife carries just fine, so no issues with that. Really, in hand, it's quite a nice knife, for being one of Kershaw's foreign production knives. It's quite nice. I have honestly no complaints with it. It feels good in hand. The action is more than acceptable. This one I picked up on eBay for, it was like $30 or something like that. But there are other websites you can pick this knife up on. It did come in box. Box was a little bit crunched from shipping, but it looks like a standard Kershaw box. So no real issues with that there. At least none immediately that pop out to you. Really not a bad design overall. Blade shape is nice. Weight is not too heavy. It's nice and slim. And for those of you who like steel frame locks, it really does give you some heft in your hand to carry the knife. Feels really good, so really not bad at all. And had Kershaw actually come out with this knife, I think it would be a pretty good seller. But that therein is the issue with the 1415 here, is that this knife doesn't exist. And so what's so curious and what's so interesting is, if you go on AliExpress right now, you can search up this knife, and you can buy them for it's less than $10, really, really dirt cheap prices. And so what's so odd about it, rather than clone a currently existing Kershaw knife, these knife manufacturers in China chose to create a fairly unique design. But what they did is they stuck the Kershaw branding on it. And they threw that on there, and this would pass in any sporting goods store, any retail outlet, and people buying it would assume, hey, this is just another Kershaw knife. So again, this one is different because this is not the model 1415. In fact, Kershaw already has a model 1415, which I actually have one of them right here on the table. So this one right here is the Kershaw Starkey Ridge. It's an older model.
It's an older code, sir, but it checks out.
But we can see right here, this is the model 1415. And this one happens to be the 1415 ST because of the serrated blade. But the fact is, Kershaw, they're not going to recycle their own model, numbers. That's kind of silly when there are so many numbers still available out there. But the cloners, the fakers in China, they just kind of randomly decided, hey, let's just print this number on this knife and call it that, be done with it. And so that's kind of the issue here is that, they got all the markings dead on accurate. The Kershaw SpeedSafe logo, the Kai logo, even again, the little insignia right there, which would mean this is designed from the United States, but it's clearly not. This is just something that was, Frankensteined together in a Chinese factory, and now they're sold, pushing the Kershaw name. Now, that being said, this is a nice knife, so Kershaw could do a lot worse with people faking their products. But there are some things that are, to me as a collector, obvious telltale signs it's not a real Kershaw. Probably number one, while the markings on the blade, they look good, the lasering is kind of, it's hard to catch on camera, but the lasering is kind of rough. It kind of has like a halo effect around it, so it's really not something I think anyone would notice, especially if you're not looking for it, but it's there. But for me, honestly, the big sign here is, if looking at the pocket clip, look at the font. The font is not exactly the same as you would see on another Kershaw knife. So like right here, check out the difference in the font there. You can tell they really tried, and they got it really close, but there's just a difference in the thickness of the lettering, and it just looks off. The actual shape is pretty much spot on because of all of Kershaw's, overseas designs, we see a lot of variation in pocket clips, especially the deep carry style clips. So there is a lot of variation in those. But looking at the clip lettering kind of threw me off. And I knew getting this knife, it was obviously going to be a fake, but it did intrigue me just enough to make the purchase. And I knew buying it would probably be a pretty solid knife, and it is. But the fact that we have a fake of a non-existent design is just super intriguing to me. Like, what was the purpose? What was the Chinese factory thinking? And because it's not like they copied a Kershaw design, and it's so unique. You don't see this design. I haven't seen this design anywhere else. What comes really close, though, is right here. As I was showing you a second ago, this right here is the Kershaw dividend. So we can see side by side. Look at the overall size and shape. Now, there's nothing exactly copied here, but we see these two knives are almost identical. And the thing is, the dividend here, this knife is a U.S. manufactured Kershaw. And so while the blade shape is similar, we have the swedge on the Chinese one, and there's not one on the dividend. Deep carry on this one, standard carry on this one, aluminum handles, steel handles, liner lock, frame lock. So there's a lot of differences. But this is kind of what it originally reminded me of, in hand and in terms of size. So this is the dividend versus our 1415. So it's just super curious, and it really sparked my interest. The fact that this knife literally does not exist, yet here it is. So we have the non-existent Kershaw 1415 in my hand, in action, and I wanted to share that with you. And again, whenever you do buy a Kershaw online, now eBay is typically one of the places you might purchase a knife like this and just have no clue. You might just purchase it just from random, sometimes they recommend things to you and it looks good. But for instance, right here, this is a Kershaw box. A legit Chinese-made knife came in this Kershaw box. Now, side by side, you're not going to really tell the difference. I know there are minute differences, but really the big thing is, so this right here has the model name and the number. So we can see like this knife right here, this is the 2044 Kershaw Outcome. And so when you buy a knife like this, you're going to see where is it? There we go. A sticker on there with the model name. And of course the 1415, there is no model name for it. They didn't think that far ahead. So it's just a number on the blade, no name to this knife, just what you see. And now if you like the design, and by all means, go buy it if you want. You're not really hurting Kershaw because this isn't one of their knives. But it's really just kind of a cool little footnote in knife design history, I suppose, is that they went through so much effort to engineer this knife and put it together. It's a super budget knife, obviously. Unknown steel, more than likely something inexpensive. But when you're buying an inexpensive knife, do I really care in the first place? No. What I do like is that wicked swedge on there, super sharp blade. The assisted action is decent enough, so no issues with that. But I love these little interesting footnotes in knife history. Why does this knife exist? Absolutely no clue. Tell me your thoughts below. What do you think about situations like this? Obviously, you don't want to knowingly support these type of companies, these fakers. But sometimes it just piques my interest. It just gets me going. But drop your comments below. Tell me what you think about this Kershaw that does not exist. Hope you all have a knife day, everyone. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.